This is the Flavor of Leadership podcast. I am your host, Clint Hoops. Together, we explore the unique blend of leadership wisdom that helps top leaders consistently achieve work goals, develop personally, and find fulfillment with family. Let's get started. Welcome to episode number 33. Several years ago, my wife and I and our kids were driving in the car and went into the drive-thru at Dairy Queen, right? Get some ice cream and with the family. And I remember we ordered our ice cream cones or milkshakes or whatever we got. And I remember we were going up to the window to pay. And as we went to give our credit card to pay, the worker there said, "Oh, the car in front of you actually already paid for you." And we're like, "Oh my goodness. That's so nice. That's amazing." And so we decided at that moment, we said, "Well, do you know what? We'll pay for the car behind us then." And so we went ahead and gave them our card, and we paid for the car behind us. And after we had done that, they handed back the card and said, "Hey, just so you know, you're about I can't remember what number exactly, but I believe 15. It was like the 15th car in a row." Once again, I don't recall the exact number, but it was a lot. And I remember being amazed at how many cars in a row had been paying for the person behind them in line. It was just absolutely amazing to think that many cars had done the same thing, had been so impacted by that first car, right? That first car had done that, and all the cars behind had done the same. It's that ripple effect that happens, right? The actions that we have, for good or bad, will just ripple onward to everyone around us. And in this case, it was a great experience and a great thing that was continued on. And some of you may have experienced something like this before. Some of you may have had good actions or something, good deed done towards you, or maybe you've done a good deed, but you never actually heard how far it went. That's what's so interesting that I thought about this is the person that was first in line, they didn't know. They didn't know that anyone passed just the car they paid for. They don't know if anyone ever did it. And us, we don't know if anybody past us ever did it either. But that's just the amazing thing about doing good deeds or other things that may not be as good, or ill actions that we may have the same impact in a negative way and cause others to be, critical of those around them. And that negativity may continue on. The same ripple can happen until somebody stops it, right? And flips it for good. And so at work, leaders are those people very often that are hoping to try and help others up and help them be better and help inspire them in the hope that they'll help inspire others to do the same. But often the leader has to be the one to take a negative ripple and make it positive once again so that others can continue to do the same. It's a tough job. It's a really tough job. This impact is huge. And the impact you have on those you lead is greater than you may realize, right? That person in that car, that first car, they didn't even know that it impacted anybody else besides the car right behind them. But here I am, years later, still sharing this story. I've shared this story a bunch of times, sharing the story of that person, and they still don't even know it. They still don't even know it. It actually reminds me of the old Back to the Future movies. and really any story about time travel has the same kind of impact. Makes me think of good old Marty McFly, right? He goes back in the Delorean and time machine, go back to the past and begins to impact the future, right? And his actions, whether they're good or bad, doesn't really matter, but they all impact the future in some way. And it goes far into the future for him. And you think about how small one of those little impacts are, and just one of those little actions and how that can impact the future in that movie. And of course, it's fiction, right? But it makes you think. It almost makes your head hurt to think about, actually, how each decision that you make, how much of an impact it really can have on what the world will look like tomorrow or in years down the road. There's a very lasting impact to the decisions we make. Once again, for good or for bad. Actually makes me think again about a time I had back when I was doing my MBA. So when I was doing my MBA, it was a tough time of life. I remember I was working, which most of the time they don't recommend you do when you're doing your MBA. I was working, trying to pay for it all. I was doing my MBA, and I also had a new child, our second child, in fact, at the time, in the middle, when this particular event happened. And it was heavy. It was heavy. I mean, I was working so many hours and trying to earn money, support my young family, spend time with my new children, and also complete my education at the same time and study and do all of those things that I needed to do. And it was heavy. And I didn't know how I was going to get through it. And I remember just feeling like I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how I was going to get through it. I still had quite a bit of time to go before I was going to finish the schooling. I had a feeling to be able to call an old professor that I had for my undergraduate. And I gave him a call, and he called me back and spent a few minutes with me over the phone. And I just needed a different perspective, right? I have wonderful family, wonderful friends, so many different people, but I just needed this different perspective at the time. And this professor took the time out of his day to sit and talk with me. And he asked me just a few questions. Nothing that probably seems pivotal. He may not even remember this conversation. But all I can tell you is the impact that he has had on my life from his small action at that time, being there when I needed it most, to ask the questions that I needed, to give me some of the small little nudges and guidance and really the encouragement I needed to get through a really dark, tough time when everything seemed overwhelming and like it would never end. He was able to help me have some perspective and help me realize I was strong enough to get through it, and that it was going to be worth it in the end. And that one little conversation helped propel me through the rest of that schooling and on into my career ever since. And that was a pivotal time, a pivotal moment for me. And it was one of those ripples that, once again, this professor may not even fully realize. Often it's these little pivotal moments in our lives that, when people are there to help us, that make all the difference in the world. The hard part about it is that when we are the one helping, we don't often know the impact that we've had. We can't often see it. And as leaders in an organization, sometimes we don't know the positive impact that we're having on those around us. We don't often hear what we're doing. But it is often the leaders in the organization are the ones that are trying to help push the positive change, help to mentor, help people become just a little bit better, hopefully help them to be better in their job and better into the future. But it doesn't have to be always the top leaders in the organization. They're driving all the change and the positive impact that are starting everything. It can be any of us. It can be anyone at any level in the organization can help start that positive change and help the good to be done and help to assist those around you in whatever way they are needed by, mentoring them, by helping them, by training them, whatever it might be. But you can help keep the good going. You can start it, or you can see good things happen around you and keep it going as a leader. Be that leader that your employees need. And if you, like me, have been helped by, a mentor or a leader from your past, take the time. Take the time to reach out to that person from your past. Even if it seems like a long time ago, even if it seems like a small thing, let them know. Let them know how much they made an impact for you. If you're a leader in your organization, you know how amazing that would feel to have someone come back and let you know how you impacted them in their past. You can do it. I know you can. If you've enjoyed the show, either today or in past episodes, please take the time to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to the show. It truly does make a huge difference in people being able to find the show. Thank you so much for listening with us today. Until next week. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of the Flavor of Leadership podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback for us, you can reach me directly at flavorofleadership.com. Thanks for listening.